Wytch Hazel always deliver when they release a new album, but there's something about this one. Let me start at the beginning. I've been a fan of this band for about 5 years. I discovered them back in 2020 when I started becoming interested in Christian metal. They released their third album called Pentecost about a month after I started this channel, and it was one of my first album reviews as a new release. They released another album in 2023 called For Sacrament, which I also reviewed on this channel. Now this band is considered to be within the broad genre of Christian metal, but they're not really in your face about it. The songs have lots of positive themes, and their frontman, Colin Hendra, is a Christian. As for the sound of the band, I would say they're like Iron Maiden, but if the first album was released back in 1970 instead of 1980. It has elements of the hard rock of the 70s. The band themselves cite influences such as Thin Lizzy, Wishbone Ash, and Jethro Tull, but they're also going for a sound that's influenced by the new wave of British heavy metal movement. So in the end, they're a band that is a genre of their own. I can't think of any other modern band that sounds like them. They're like heavy metal, but metal before it even existed. You can also hear these medieval and Renaissance music influences in their sound. This brings us to the new album called Lamentations. It was released on July 4th, 2025. It's their 5th studio album. They're continuing their signature sound, but it's something else about this album that needs to be spoken about, and I'll get to that as I talk more about the songs. They're continuing with the same lyrical themes on the album. The songs are very introspective, and they talk about the spiritual struggle that people face. The album contains 10 tracks. It's about 45 minutes long. It was produced by a longtime collaborator, Ed Turner. The album opens with I Lament. Immediately, I recognize the sound with the harmonized guitars and the hard-driving drum beat and the audible bass line. The song has some cool guitar riffs. They bring back their medieval sound. I felt the drumming stands out as well on this track. There's part in the middle of the song where they slow down the pace and add more melody. They later pick up the pace and they have some more harmonized guitar leads. They follow this up with Run the Race. This one brings back more of that faster-paced rock with the galloping guitars and the intro guitar riff, slightly reminiscent of Iron Maiden's Wasted Years. I also noticed they added some cleaner guitar tones in the verse as well, and more harmonies. I like the song a lot, and I am a fan of all songs with galloping guitars. I also noticed maturity in Colin's vocals. He adds in this high-pitched scream towards the end of the song, which is something I never really noticed before with him. I always felt his vocals always had that mid-range that really worked well with the songs. After this is The Citadel, and this is where the album takes a slight turn with some folkier sounding instruments at first. Here's a little clip of that. I imagine it's maybe just a 12-string acoustic. I might be wrong, but it might be a mandolin or something like that. But I like it anyway. They later bring in these distorted guitars and they play power chords, and they kept the pace a little slower on this track, and that gave the song a lot more feeling. You can hear all the instruments very well. You hear the bass guitar and the drums. They sound very good. There's a lot of variety in the drumming. Even though it's a slower paced track, there's also a melodic guitar solo, which I liked. I heard some melodies that sounded like a mandolin, but could be a guitar without distortion. Nonetheless, it's a very good song. Now we're 4 songs into the album. The next one's called Elements, and it reminded me of some 70s rock, something like Electric Light Orchestra at first, but they continue with their signature sound. There were more of those harmonized guitars, and the drumming had a lot of energy. They added some acoustic guitars in the verse section, and that gave it another layer of sound. There were some underlying melodies in the song. Not only that, but the guitar solo was very melodic, and I think there were 2 guitar solos, as the second one had more of this rocking metal feel. They continue the 70s rock sound on the next track, The Demon Within. The song marks the middle of the album, and it still has that very melodic rock sound. I found the sound on this track to be thicker with more layers of sound. There were still great melodies with the harmonized guitars. I could hear more acoustic guitars on this track. I also think the guitar tone is a little different than the previous album. I think the distortion was turned down a little. The song has some quieter moments towards the end, and it creates some pretty cool contrasting moments. As we get to the second half of the album, we come to a song called Racing Forwards. This one has that same 70s rock sound with a cool, thick bass guitar sound and some power chords. The song is very melodic. It has a hard driving rhythm. It's another song that has a slower rhythm, but still has all those harmonized guitars and melodic moments. The album takes another turn with an instrumental called Elixir. It really sounds like a medieval folk song. It sounds like a bunch of guys sitting around a fire in the forest playing these stringed instruments. Thought it was a nice change of pace and a nice transition to the last part of the album. The song is under 2 minutes, so it was also the perfect length. As we get to the end of the album, the next song is called Woven. This one continues with a signature rock or hard rock sound. I thought it was one of the heavier tracks as it had that galloping guitar sound with more of an energetic feel. There were harder hitting power chords and some melodic vocals. The song has lots of melody, catchy hooks. The chorus is kind of catchy, and they say woven in love. I've never heard that expression before, and the guitar solo is very good on this track as well. The penultimate song is called Heavy Load. This one had more of a stripped down melodic sound and gave it this Renaissance fair type of sound. One of the slower tracks, I would even call it a ballad, had more acoustic guitars and a folkier sound. It was a nice change of pace, had more of a stripped down sound, but they still had the distorted guitars in the chorus. The song also had a slower, more melodic chorus. Then towards the end, the song picked up the pace a little bit. The lyrics are very deep as well, and they talk about the heavy load one has to carry throughout life. The album ends with a track called Healing Power. Had that typical Wytch Hazel sound they're known for. Lots of harmonized guitars as well as power chords. It's another song that doesn't move very fast. It still had that classic sound. The song also has some cool guitar gallops as well as the melodic lead guitars. Also the longest song at over 6 minutes. There were a few extended instrumental sections towards the end of the song. In conclusion, I said at the beginning there was something about this album, and that's the fact they're starting to strip down their sound and move into more of a rock direction while at the same time turning down the metal a little bit. I had to do some comparisons by listening to a few of the songs from their previous 2 albums to hear that contrast. It still sounds the same, but the album just sounded a little more stripped down. I'm also starting to think the band is like the antithesis of the band Ghost, whereas Ghost have a sound closer to 80s hard rock and they sing about the devil. This band has more of that early 70s sound and they sing about God. Both bands are not really metal bands. They're borderline metal, but they can be embraced by metal fans. Anyway, it's a great album. My score, 8.5 out of 10. Let me know in the comments what you thought. Check out my review of the previous album, For Sacrament. And in the meantime, thanks for watching. Please like this video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you have not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. I will see you in the next one.